Once upon a time, in a small village by the sea, there lived a poor fisherman and his wife. They had a tiny cottage near the shore and were content with their simple life. But the wife often complained about their poverty. She dreamed of living in a grand palace, far away from the troubles of their humble existence. One fine morning, as the fisherman cast his net into the sea, he felt something unusual tugging at the end of his line. To his amazement, he pulled up a large, shimmering fish. The fish looked at him with pleading eyes and spoke in a soft, human voice. "Please, kind fisherman, let me go. I am no ordinary fish. I am a magical creature, and in return for your kindness, I will grant you any wish." Surprised and moved by the fish's words, the fisherman hesitated. But then he remembered his wife's constant complaints and thought, "If I could have one wish, perhaps I can change our lives forever." So the fisherman gently released the fish back into the sea. As he returned home, the fisherman told his wife about the magical fish and the offer it had made. His wife listened intently, her eyes sparkling with greed. "Why didn't you ask for anything?" she cried. "We are poor, and you let such an opportunity slip away. Go back and ask that fish for a better life for us, something grand." The fisherman hesitated. He had done the right thing by releasing the fish, but his wife insisted. Reluctantly, he returned to the sea and called out to the fish. To his amazement, the fish surfaced once more and asked what he desired. "My wife wants a new house," the fisherman said. "Can you grant us a better one?" The fish agreed, and with a flick of its tail, the fisherman returned home to find a large, beautiful house in place of their modest cottage. The walls were painted in bright colors, and there were gardens full of blooming flowers. It was a dream come true for the fisherman's wife. At first, she was thrilled, but soon, she began to complain once more. The house was nice, but it wasn't enough. "This house is too small. I want something bigger, with more rooms, more servants, and more luxury. I want to be a queen," she exclaimed. Reluctantly, the fisherman went back to the sea again. The fish, understanding his predicament, granted his wife's wish, and soon they were living in a grand palace. The wife had everything she could ever dream of: a golden throne, elegant clothes, and a huge staff of servants. But even then, she wasn't satisfied. She grew bored of her new life and started longing for even greater power. "I want to be the most powerful woman in the land," she said. "I want to rule over all the people. Go to the fish and ask for that." The fisherman was beginning to feel uneasy, but he did as his wife asked. The fish granted the wish, and soon, the wife became the queen of the land. She wore a crown of diamonds and ruled over the kingdom with an iron fist. She had everything she could possibly imagine except peace of mind. Days passed, and the queen's desires grew even more extravagant. "I am the queen, but I want to be the ruler of the sun and the moon. I want to control the stars in the sky," she demanded. The fisherman, now tired and weary of his wife's unending greed, approached the sea one final time. He called out to the fish, but this time, the fish's voice was grave. "You have asked for too much, fisherman. The sun and moon cannot be ruled by anyone. You have been granted all that you should need. Go back and tell your wife that there is no more." The fisherman returned to the palace, his heart heavy. When he told his wife that the fish could grant no more wishes, she flew into a rage. "How dare you come back empty-handed? I am the queen of this land and should have everything I desire," she shouted. In her fury, she went to the highest tower of the palace and demanded the sun, the moon, and the stars from the heavens above. But no answer came. Suddenly, a great storm began to brew in the distance. Dark clouds rolled over the palace, and the wind howled with fury. The waves of the sea grew taller and more violent, crashing against the shore. It was as though the earth itself was rejecting her greed. When the storm calmed, the fisherman and his wife found themselves back in the very place they had started their small, humble cottage by the sea. The house was nothing more than a shack. The gardens had withered away, and their riches were gone. They were as poor as they had ever been, and everything was as it had been before the magical fish had granted them their wishes. The wife, now humbled and regretful, looked at her husband with tears in her eyes. "What have I done?" she cried. "I asked for more and more, and now we have nothing." The fisherman sighed and took her hand. "You wanted everything," he said, "but what we had was enough. Greed only brings ruin." And so, the fisherman and his wife lived the rest of their lives as they had before, In contentment, no longer yearning for riches, but instead grateful for the simple blessings they had once taken for granted. Moral of the story: the tale of the fisherman and his wife is a timeless lesson about the dangers of greed and discontentment. No matter how much one has, constantly desiring more without appreciating the present can lead to the loss of everything. The story teaches that true happiness comes not from wealth or power, but from gratitude for what we already have.